Most of us did not sign our kids up for sports so they could become professional athletes. We signed them up because sports provide positive adult mentorship, leadership development, teamwork, resilience, community and belonging, new friendships, and then a positive after-school activity so they're less likely to get themselves into trouble. So we sign them up for all of those things, but we forget about that sometimes and we lose the thread, right? But when we remember that, it changes how we show up. It reminds us that the real win is not the scoreboard. The real win is the kind of person we're helping them become through these opportunities. Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmine Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back into the podcast. Today I want to talk to you about something that applies to so many families that are raising tweens and teens, and that is how we support our kids when they're involved in sports. So when they are teen athletes, how do we show up for them? Are we helping them on their journey? Are we hindering their journey? Are we offering the best support that we can? So whether your teen plays soccer or baseball or basketball, track, gymnastics, wrestling, or any other sport, athletics can be one of the most powerful developmental experiences in a young person's life when they have the right mentorship and guidance through great coaches and also the way we show up as parents. Sports can really teach a lot of things like perseverance, teamwork, leadership, emotional regulation, how to handle wins and losses, and how to keep showing up even when things get hard. But there is something that we don't talk about enough, and that's the role that parents play in shaping that experience. The truth is that the way we respond from the sidelines, in the car ride home, and during the hard moments can either help our teens grow stronger or unintentionally add pressure and stress. So today, I want to talk about a few ways we can really support our teen athletes in ways that actually help them build confidence, resilience, and love for the game. So you might be curious what my relationship is with teens and sports, although if you've been listening to this podcast, you probably hear me talk a lot about going to volleyball tournaments or baseball games or that type of thing. And so for me, sports have been a hugely integral part of raising my own kids. Both of them started around kindergarten, maybe even earlier. My son started with basketball. He's done flag football. He's done soccer. He's done baseball, starting at t-ball, just all of the things. And so just going from one sport to the next from the time he was 5, and now he's a senior in high school. He's down to one sport now, which is baseball, which has become his total love. And then my daughter has also similarly been in every sport possible under the sun: soccer, basketball, volleyball. She's now added tennis in recently. She had gotten down to one sport, which was volleyball, but she just on a whim went and tried out for the tennis team just this last week and made it to the team, even though, she's brand new at the sport. They just needed players. And so she got in. And so she's trying something new, which is really fun as well. But sports have been just such a big part of our life, whether it's driving them to all their practices, spending all of our weekends on the sideline, in the baseball bleachers, in the stands for volleyball, all the things. We are just constantly running around, getting them places, helping them practice, getting them to away tournaments, driving all over Kingdom Come, flying places sometimes now that my daughter's in travel volleyball, just all the things. So it has been a huge, huge part of my parenting journey. And for me, it's been such a blessing. Not only has it been so amazing to have them involved in sports, but it's also just so fun. It's so fun to be able to watch them develop skill, whether that's, listening and taking feedback or bouncing back and having resilience, or even just being on the stands and being able to cheer for them. I've shared this before, but there's something about, the presence you have when you're sitting in the stands cheering for your kid. You were just locked into that moment. It's like all the things that are happening in the world, all the things that are happening in your bank account, all the things that might be stressing you out. It's like they disappear in those moments, and you're just like cheering with your whole heart for your kid to win. And it's just so fun. You're just hooting and hollering and all the things. And your whole parent section is just high-fiving each other, enjoying each other's company. And I just really enjoy it. I've always enjoyed being out there watching my kids do their best. Sometimes it's gone really well for them. We've had so many different wins and highlights and big moments of achievement, and we've had so many losses, so many heartbreaks, so many car rides home that have been really, really challenging, even very long car rides home when we're away at a travel tournament 4 hours away and there was a big loss, or you didn't get the play time that you wanted and you were on the bench or whatever. All the things. It's been, somewhat of a roller coaster of emotions, but it's really allowed them to have an amount of emotional growth that they probably wouldn't have gotten as quickly if they weren't involved in these sports and having coaching outside of the home. The other thing I've really appreciated about having my kids in sports is that they have something that they're doing every day after school. They have something that, keeps them active physically, that they are constantly trying to figure out, so they're using their mind. They're learning how to navigate relationships, how to be part of a team, how to take feedback from a coach. But they have something positive to do with their time. So they're not out hanging out at parks, smoking pot or whatever it might be, or getting involved with risky friendships as much, right? Because they're so busy with their time. They're not at home scrolling for hours and hours every day because they have 3 hours of practice every day after school. And by the time they get home, it's dinner time. And, they might have a little bit of time to scroll on their phones, but it's not hours and hours like it could be if they didn't have some type of activity to keep them engaged. So for me, I've seen lots and lots of benefits of having my kids involved in sports from an early age. And for my family, still really helping with the mental health picture, with the hope for the future, with, moving forward in a good direction. Now that my son is, heading off to college to play baseball at a community college, it gives him that extra little push out the door to go launch and to be part of something that feels inspiring to him, that he's passionate about. I feel like if he wasn't in baseball, he'd probably be a lot less inspired to go off to college and to have his launch. And so this is really helping to propel him out the door as well. So, and I know sports are not for every kid, so you might have a kid that never resonated with sports, and there's no shame in that. Each and every kid is their own unique individual. I say that all the time. We try not to put our kids into boxes and push them into things that we think that are going to be really good for them that they don't want to do. It's really great to provide opportunities and suggestions, but also to take our kids' feedback. There's kids that really thrive in a lot of different ways. Maybe they're a musician or an artist, or maybe they're into robotics or coding or whatever it might be. Each of our kids have their own interests that spark them, that light them up. And so this is not me pushing you to push your teen into sports if that's not their jam, right? But if it is their jam, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some ways that we as parents can really show up for them in a good way to make their experience that much better, so that they're not getting extra pressure from us and it's not creating distance or friction in our relationship, but rather being an area that, helps us to have more connection with them and influence them in positive ways. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is to start with listening before problem solving. One of the most powerful things we can do as parents is to listen. And that sounds so simple, but it's actually harder than it sounds. When our teen comes off the field, frustrated or upset, our instinct is to jump in with solutions. We might say things like, next time you should just, or you need to work on, or you should talk to your coach about. But most of the time, what they actually need first is someone just to hear them and to validate their feelings. So instead of immediately trying to fix the situation, we can really just slow it down and say something like, wow, that sounds like it was really frustrating. Or I could see how hard you were working out there. Or that must have been really tough. right? Validation doesn't mean that we agree with everything they say. It just means that we're acknowledging their experience. And when teens feel understood, they're far more open to reflection and growth later. This is something that I have really, really practiced over the years, and I found it to be so, so helpful because I can't tell you how many times I've picked one of my kids up from practice or after a game, we're in the car, and they are so frustrated and angry and upset and dysregulated about something. They didn't get enough playtime, or their teammate didn't do such and such, or their coach said this that really frustrated them, or they lost the game, or they didn't get, the reps they wanted in practice, or such and such a teammate said this and it hurt their feelings, right? There's so many things that they're navigating at these practices, which is great because, learning how to navigate hard moments is one of the skills we need for life. So it's really great that they're navigating these things. And it's really great when they come and they want to tell us about these things. And we want that, right? We want to be that space where they can come to and share all those things that, are up for them that felt really hard. And the way that we can be that person for them and not have them just be completely shut down and not want to share is by really just being a space for them to vent without us jumping in right away to fix. My daughter comes into the car after practice and I'm like, how was it? And she's like, oh my gosh, this, that, and the other, rah, 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 right? And just goes on a tangent about everything that was wrong. How, she didn't get this, that, or the other. And, I just listen. So it'd be very, very easy for me to jump in and say, like, I don't think you should be looking at it that way. Like, I can give so many tips and tricks about how you should be receiving this information from your coach, or you could be utilizing this mess up for growth or whatever it might be. But she is not open to that in that moment. When she is dysregulated, when she's in a stress response, right? When her lid is flipped, she does not have access to her prefrontal cortex, to emotional regulation, to any of that. She's not going to be able to process or think through the things I'm saying anyway. The only thing that's going to happen if I jump in and give her advice in that moment is she's going to shut down. It happens every time. I mean, believe me, I've tried it. I've tried all the things. And I can guarantee that if we jump in with feedback, tips, mindset shifts, all of those things, when they are dysregulated and upset, it's not going to go well. They will shut down. They will give an eye roll. They'll dismiss what we're saying. It's not going to reach them in that moment anyway. So the best thing that we can do is like, wow, that sounds really hard. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you had such a hard practice today. And that's pretty much it. And maybe after they've calmed down or whatever, we can talk about it again and potentially offer some tips or another way to look at the situation. But really having that pause and that restraint in those moments to jump in with all of our beautiful gems of wisdom. you know, they don't want it. They don't want it. They don't need it. It's not helpful. So that's been a huge lesson for me. My connection in the car ride on the way home from these things has gone up so much because I don't jump in those moments with advice. And so that's one thing I would just really invite you to try is, if it has been tense, if you have been, giving advice and then they snap at you, if they have stopped sharing, really see if there's a way for you to go in and have a little bit of a pause when they do open up and just validate their experience. And that leads me into the second point, which is know when to offer advice and when to hold back. So parents often feel like we should be helping our kids improve. But here's the thing. Our teen athletes already have coaches who are experts in their field most often, right? Sometimes you get a random recent high school grad who's their coach, but for the most part, their coaches have played the sport, have coached for years, right? They are experts in what they're doing. And when parents become another coach on the sidelines or in the car ride home, it can actually create confusion or pressure. So a really helpful question to ask is, do you want some advice or help with this right now, or do you just want me to listen? So after you've listened and validated, we can ask that question. Would you like some help looking at this differently? And so that simple question gives teens a sense of autonomy. Sometimes they'll want feedback, and other times they just want to vent and move on. So learning to pause and ask instead of jumping in can make a huge difference. I do think there are plenty of moments when, giving our teens some advice or some tips are totally helpful, but just picking the right time, the right moment, and asking if they want some help is really the key. A lot of the times that I've had success in offering a few tips around mindset or things like that are on the way to a game before they're feeling upset or triggered by something that happened. So helping them to get into the right mindset before they go onto the court, or maybe it's, a few hours after they've vented and we check back in with them and ask them if they'd like some help. So this is not to say that we never give our kids advice, right? But choosing the right time and making sure that they're open to it is going to really increase our likelihood of success in that conversation and have it be something that they actually can access and utilize. All right, let's move into the third thing that I want to talk with you about today, which is helping our teens with their mindset. So mistakes and losses are a normal part of sports, but in the moment, they can feel huge to teens, right? They might replay the missed shot, the strikeout, the dropped ball, or the turnover over and over in their mind. And when that happens, the story in their head can quickly turn into things like, I blew it, I'm terrible, I always mess up, my team hates me, right? And this is where mindset becomes really important because one of the things young athletes are learning through sports is how to recover after things don't go their way. So I want to walk you through a few simple tools that can really help them do the reset. So one of them is visualization. So encourage your teen to spend some time before each game picturing how they want it to go. They can see themselves making the shot, making the catch, running the play they want to. Their brain actually responds so strongly to imagined practice, and athletes at every level use this tool. There has been a lot of research covering the power of visualization and how your brain can't really tell the difference between something that you imagine vividly and something that's actually happened. And so you're actually starting to build those pathways in your brain around success and accomplishment and, making those shots or whatever it might be. So another thing we can help them understand is the power of their thoughts. The brain is always listening to the story we repeat. So when athletes learn to notice their thoughts and shift them towards something more helpful, like next play or I've got this, it helps their nervous system reset and their focus return to the game. I teach a really simple bounce back routine to the teens that I coach called Feel It, Flip It, Find It. And so what that is that the first step is to feel it. So acknowledge the frustration or disappointment instead of pretending it isn't there, right? So they missed that shot and that sucks, right? So they can even tell themselves that sucks, or I'm embarrassed, or whatever other feeling is coming up for them. So acknowledging it, right? Feeling it. And then comes flip it. This is where they shift the thought from something harsh or self-critical into something more constructive. Like that play didn't go how I wanted, but I'm still in this. And then they move into find it, which is where they find the next action, the next play. They find their inner reserves. They find that version of themselves that knows what to do, knows the next play, knows how to pull themselves back up in the moment. My husband actually has a phrase he says to our kids sometimes when they're upset, but they have to get back out on the field or back onto the court. He'll just say, short memory. And that's such a powerful concept for athletes. You celebrate the wins, you learn from the mistakes, but you don't carry them around for the next 3 innings, the next quarter, or the next game. You reset and you move forward. And helping our teens develop that kind of resilience might be one of the most valuable lessons sports can offer. I heard him pull that phrase out, just a few weekends ago when we were at a volleyball tournament. My daughter was upset in between matches. And she vented and vented and vented about all the things. And we both just listened and let her vent and get it off her chest. And then he just replied really quickly, short memory. And she's like, nodded her head. And that was it, right? She walked off and went and got her food. We went off and, did whatever we were going to do in between the game. And when we came back 30 minutes later, she was completely reset. Like she had taken that tiny bit of feedback and was able to remember that, like, oh yeah, I don't want to carry this into my next match. So it's a really powerful, helpful reminder. Okay, and that's going to move us into the fourth thing I want to talk about today, which is remembering why we signed them up for sports in the first place. So sometimes the intensity of competition can make everyone lose sight of the bigger picture. but most of us did not sign our kids up for sports so they could become professional athletes. We sign them up because sports provide positive adult mentorship, leadership development, teamwork, resilience, community and belonging, new friendships, and then a positive after school activity so they're less likely to get themselves into trouble, right? So we sign them up for all of those things, but we forget about that sometimes and we lose the thread. But when we remember that, it changes how we show up. It reminds us that the real win is not the scoreboard. The real win is the kind of person we're helping them become through these opportunities. And this is why our behavior from the stands matters so much. Our teenagers notice how we're showing up. They notice when we're respectful toward their coaches. They notice how we treat the referees. They notice how we talk about other teams and players. They notice whether or not we're heckling the other parents on the other side, right? So the sideline is actually such a powerful place where our kids can see adult modeling in real time. So when we cheer with enthusiasm, but also show respect and humility and sportsmanship, we're teaching something far more important than winning. We're showing them what leadership and character look like. And this doesn't just matter for the parents on the sidelines. This is also so important for the coaches. I have seen such ugly things in the stands of so many different sports. It actually blows my mind. I've seen parents getting yellow carded for cussing at a ref or yelling at a parent from the opposite team. I've seen coaches get ejected for the way they're talking to the ref. I've seen coaches encourage, nasty behavior from their players towards other teams, heckling and just calling names and all kinds of stuff. Like it has gotten so ugly out there sometimes. And I am just so shocked and dismayed all the time with the behavior I'm seeing from the adults out on the field and in the stands, because this is such a prime opportunity to model behavior for our kids. Like the reason I want my kid out there is because I want them to have positive adult mentorship. I want them to learn how to be a good teammate, how to be a good human, right? How to push really hard through adversity and come out on the other side, sometimes with a win and sometimes with a loss, and be able to bounce back either way and not make it mean something about who they are. I don't want to have my kid out there learning how to be a bully. I don't want my kid out there watching parents call names from the stands or yell at refs or do all those like just immature behaviors. Like to me, that is just appalling, honestly. And so just the reminder that like we signed our kids up for these sports to provide something positive in their life so that we can help them to be good humans out in the world, right? And so that starts with how we show up in the stands. That starts with our coaches and how the coaches show up and what they're modeling. And so this is such an important piece that it just makes me sad sometimes, when I see it out there. We've been really fortunate for the most part with all the teams that our kids have been on, that we've had amazing coaches that are just such great mentors and role models. And the parents that I've been, on the stands with have, for the most part, been just so amazing and wonderful role models for the kids as well. So most of what I've seen is actually from other teams and other sidelines. But yeah, I just hate that culture. I hate that culture so much because it is such a missed opportunity to show our kids how to be good humans, how to be good adults, how to operate under pressure and still have integrity. So those are the things that I think are so important about sports and what they can offer to our kids and how it's so missed sometimes. All right, and that brings me to the final point that I want to share with you today, which is that sports create built-in opportunities for connection with our teenagers. And we don't want to miss those opportunities. So one of the really beautiful aspects of having teens in sports is that sports naturally create all of these different opportunities for connection. Think about all the moments that come with it. The car rides to practice, traveling to away games or tournaments, helping them put in extra reps, playing catch in the yard, shooting hoops together, passing a volleyball back and forth, right? These moments matter more than we often realize. The more time young athletes spend practicing and playing outside of formal practices and games, the more they improve. But what's really special is that this is something we can do with them. especially when they're younger and before they get so good that they're way out of our league. Those extra reps can be really beautiful opportunities for shared experiences. It's time talking, time laughing, time being together. And for many teens, some of the best conversations happen when you're side by side doing something together, not sitting face to face. So sports don't just build skills on the field, they create these natural spaces for relationship building and connection, which is something that we all need more time for with our kids. The way it's kind of worked in my family is that my husband is more the person that gets out there and plays basketball or plays catch or does all those things. And I'm more, the behind the scenes, doing a lot of the rides to practices and lots of the car time and other supports that might be necessary. But for me, the car time is just gold. Like that is time to have conversations, to learn what's going on in their life. This is something that I miss so much with my oldest because he's been driving for several years now. That car time was just such a great opportunity to, check in and catch up and all the things. And I don't get that anymore. And that's hard because now, he's at school all day and then he's at practice all night and you just see him for these brief little minutes. And so just the reminder that all those little extra moments of traveling places and driving kids around in the car, those are such gold, right? Don't take them for granted because all of a sudden your kid's 16 and gets their license and you don't have those moments anymore. They're so fleeting. It goes so fast. I've realized that so much now that I'm about to launch one kid out the door. It's just like, oh my gosh, like where did the time go? It can seem like the years are going by slowly when they're little, and then it's just like time speeds up so fast. And so just taking advantage of all those moments and opportunities, making sure that they're not plugged in and scrolling TikTok while they're in the car with you, but they have their phone away so you guys can chat and listen to music and talk story, that's so important. So what I'd love you to walk away with today is that supporting a teen athlete isn't about having all the right answers. It's about creating an environment where they feel supported, encouraged, and safe to grow through the experience. And we can do this by being great listeners, offering guidance when it's welcome, helping them develop their growth mindset and resilience after mistakes, remembering why we signed them up for sports in the first place and showing up like that for them, and taking advantage of all the moments for connection that we can while we still have them here with us. For me, having my kids involved in sports has been one of the greatest joys in my parenting journey. I have enjoyed every single moment in the stands. I have enjoyed watching them develop and grow and improve their craft, really find the confidence in themselves as they get better in each different area that's required, and watching as they've built skills and teamwork and leadership and just all the things. It's been quite a journey, and I'm so happy that I still am on the journey and that I'm going to get to watch my kid play ball in community college and continue to support my daughter as she has the rest of her high school sports experiences and all of that. So if you have a tween or a teen in sports and you can relate to any of this or any of it felt helpful, drop me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your story and how being the parent of an athlete has impacted your journey. I love hearing from you guys, so please do reach out anytime. Thank you all so much for being here. I do not take your presence for granted. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. I know there's lots of options out there, so thanks for dropping in and hanging with me today. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone. Did you enjoy the show? If so, would you take 30 seconds to subscribe so you don't miss an episode? Leave a quick review so more parents can find these conversations and maybe even share this episode to your stories. And if you want to connect, please send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at jasmine.guidedpassages, and that's Jasmine with a Y. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll talk to you next week.